The purpose of this video is to provide an overview on how to fill out the General Laboratory Risk Assessment. By the end, you should feel confident in filling out this form. Section 1, General Information. This section allows a researcher to input basic information that outlines the researcher, the project, and their PI or supervisor. This is also where the supervisor will place their signature once complete. Section 2, Other Hazards. The Safety Office has a multitude of different safety programs focused on specific hazards such as biosafety, laser safety, radiation safety, designated substances, and more. If any of these hazards apply to your work, please check the box and open the associated link which will open that specific safety program for the particular hazard. Research must meet applicable program requirements. In this case, you'll note that we have identified that biohazards exist for this project because we are culturing bacteria to inoculate a bioreactor tank. Safety considerations will be focused on culturing the bacteria and inoculating the bioreactor. No special hazards exist. Section 3. Experimental Process Summary. This section is rather straightforward. Simply list the basic and main steps associated with the project. Detailed information can be referenced by an SOP if one exists. Section 4. WHMIS. In this section, you will be entering WHMIS data specific to the chemicals used. Column 1 is for the name of the chemical. Column 2 is for the WHMIS hazard classification. You will see that hydrogen is both a flammable gas and a compressed gas. Column 3 is where you input the category. Some classes have varying categories depending on hazard, with Category 1 being the most hazardous. Not all classes have categories. In this case, you can see that gases under pressure has no category. Column 4 is used to outline the hazard and precautionary statements, which can provide basic information on chemical handling. Try not to include obvious statements. For example, we have included H280 contains gas under pressure in this risk assessment. However, it's not necessary because it's a rather obvious statement. To add more rows to the WHMIS hazards section, first click inside the table. Then click the plus button that appears in the lower right corner. You will now have the space to add a new chemical, hazards, categories, and precautionary statements. For more information on evaluating chemical hazards, review the Assessing Chemical Risk in Research Environments resource found on the Chemical Safety page. Section 5. List equipment. In this section, equipment used should be listed. We define equipment as anything that either imparts or removes energy from the system, or that contains reactions. Rotary evaporators, ovens, blowtorches, pressure tanks, mechanical presses, etc. should all be identified here. Basic open glassware, such as beakers, are not required to be entered here. Section 6. Hazardous Conditions. This section is used to identify how experimental conditions, reactions, and equipment may interact to cause a hazard. For instance, working with a flammable gas, such as hydrogen, and an oxidizing gas, such as oxygen, should be identified here as a flammability hazard. Any special requirements that go along with the equipment being used should also be listed here. You'll note that we have identified that intermediary tanks and additionally electronic equipment should be rated for work with flammables because we are using a flammable gas. Section 7. Managing Hazardous Waste. This section allows one to plan the type of hazardous waste that may be generated here. Once wastes and volumes have been estimated, the researcher can contact the Environmental Safety Facility technician for guidance on disposing of waste before it's produced. Section 8. Standard Operating Procedures. Any operating procedures developed for this work should be listed here. If none are listed, there should be a reasonable explanation as to why that is the case. You'll note that 2 SOPs are listed in this example. Section 9. Personal Protective Equipment. This section identifies what PPE is required, when it is required, and where it is stored. Again, this is another reference point that allows researchers to easily see what is needed and if they have it. Section 10. Supervisor Commentary. This section is a space for the supervisor to list or identify any concerns they may have with the project. These concerns should be addressed prior to beginning the project. Finally, Section 11 is the workers' sign-off. This section allows all workers to note that they have read the risk assessment, have received any applicable practical training, and that they have had the chance to ask any questions prior to starting work on the project. I hope this video helped in understanding how to fill out the General Risk Assessment form.